The right to offend is not some pesky little part of freedom of speech that we have to put up with. It is the heart and soul and lungs of freedom of speech. It is the coursing lifeblood of human progress. It is the instigator of liberty and modernity and science and understanding. What a laughing stock today's student leaders are, that they can so casually dismiss the right to be offensive without realizing that their lovely, enlightened lives are the gift of individuals who gave offense. Offensiveness is not just something we have to begrudgingly accept. Offensiveness is the motor of human progress.
Hey there, folks, and welcome to the Whitfield Report Monday edition. I am your host, Sam Whitfield, and we're recording this podcast a week early over the 4th of July holiday, but by the time you guys hear this, we'll be back from our vacation. So joining me this week is Luke Goozdich, who is the author of Vipers and Red Rocks. And Luke has a very interesting, story as an author from what I've been able to tell, in the sense that he and I both write in men's adventure fiction and modern day pulp fiction, which is kind of a very niche genre. I've been wanting to have him on for a while. He's just released his new book, Vipers and Red Rocks, which I just purchased today at the time of recording this. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I'm looking forward to it. And man, there are just a lot of good books coming out so far this summer. So Luke, welcome to the Whitfield Report. How are you today, sir?
Good. Thank you for having me. It's exciting. I love talking men's adventure fiction and, like I said, modern pulp. Not always the case to run into somebody who writes in that genre, let alone who kind of enjoys it and knows about it. So I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on. So, I guess just to kind of start off, how did you get into writing in this genre specifically? I tuned into your Instagram live stream yesterday, and it seemed like you and
Yeah.
your buddy Nathaniel were talking about a lot of your influences, which is always fascinating.
Yeah. So, I got started in writing um, like around third grade, writing films with my friends on the weekends. It's like how we hung out. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we would, I'd write a script during the school week, during math class and things. That's why I wasn't doing so well. And then film
Yeah.
during the weekends. So I started with screenwriting for years and years and years and years and years until about my freshman year of college was the first time I tried to switch over to novel writing. And at first I tried to be real kind of like smart and pretentious, and they were dramas, and it wasn't men's adventure fiction. But once I kind of fell in love with the thriller genre of novels like First Blood, Jack Carr stuff, Savage Son, like I started to go down that path of reading. I realized these are the types of films I was making as a kid with my friends. I just need to do this on the page. Long story short, around 2020, I had a bunch of clots in my heart, lung, and legs. Almost died. Got a little more focused on what I wanted to do. I started writing what became the first book I published, which was Frozen Wrath.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. How old are you by chance, if I may ask? I think you and I are about the same age.
I think 28. I believe I'm 28. I kind of lose track, but 28. Just had a birthday on May 28th. Yeah, I was born in
Oh,
1992.
happy birthday. Yeah, I'm 29. I'll be 30 in January. Yeah, it's wild because I don't know, I haven't known you for that long, but it kind of seems like you and I have a similar path.
Yeah,
I too was always writing stories as a kid. I was really into James Bond growing up, probably my favorite fictional character. I wrote a couple of like really mediocre stories like when I was in middle school and in high school. Then I got, then once I started college, I took a couple of screenwriting classes, and that's actually kind of how I write things now, at least to start off. But then once you get into college, your whole kind of creative time gets really like sucked up because you have to write stuff for school, especially I'm an English major, so like all my free time I basically didn't have
right.
any. So when I finally graduated in 2022, I had like I had some free time, and I started to see like all these manuscripts I had written over the years, and just was like, okay, well, what if I actually did something? And so I too started kind of writing in the men's adventure fiction genre. And yeah, I mean, I'm on my third novella right now, and just got that submitted, so that'll be coming out at the end of July. So it's
That's,
it's
yeah, it sounds
wild.
like we do have a somewhat of a similar path there.
Yeah. Um, so as far as your influences for writing goes, like who's who who or I guess what are some of your main influences? Because it sounds like you have many from what I've been able to tell.
Yeah. Um, I definitely have a lot of like um, literary heroes that I like to look up to. Number one on the Mount Rushmore for me is Louis L'Amour. Um,
Hmm.
Anybody who knows me, I talk about Louis L'Amour to a nauseating degree, probably. I love everything he's done.
Yeah,
Do you like Louis L'Amour?
I'm just getting into some of his stuff now, mainly
Okay,
because
yeah,
of
I remember
you,
us talking about
actually.
this. Nice.
But
Yeah, I'm trying to
yeah,
turn as many people as I can towards Louis L'Amour because he was a super fascinating guy and wrote incredible short little novels. I love.
yeah, yeah. I'm kind of the same way with Ian Fleming, who actually
Yeah,
created and wrote the character of James Bond, because everyone knows the movies, and the movies are great, but not too many people have read the books, which are
right.
the books were the formation for James Bond. And I don't really feel like you can understand the character without reading that early material that well. But uh, anyway, continue
It's
on
different,
though.
different take in the novels than it is in the movies. I've read only one so far because I'm one of those people who's like seen the movies, haven't read the character until this year around February, something like that. I read Moonraker and I liked it, and it was like very not so different, but it's very distinct difference between book Bond and film Bond for sure. There's like he had this kind of mundane life for a lot of the time and had one or two adventures a year. It was kind of interesting take to see him like that.
Yeah, well, Moonraker in book format is also like a lot more serious, whereas like the Roger Moore version of Moonraker, I think that's the one where like Bond goes to outer space, and it was made like in the late '70s, around the time when Star Wars was a thing, and it's not bad, but but it's the Roger Moore era got pretty campy as far as the movies go.
Yeah,
So like Moonraker was like very grounded and kind of gritty, which I found fascinating. Honestly. So
Roger Moore got the silly bombs for sure.
yeah. But yeah, you mentioned Louis L'Amour, who I've heard of, but I'm just now diving into his work. I think you mentioned Andrews and Wilson at one point when we were talking as well. Or
Yeah, Andrews and Wilson. I think that nobody can kind of write action the way they do. My favorite action scene in any novel is the opening to Tier One, the first Tier One book.
yeah,
It was just like I don't know the way they wrote it, that pairing. It was so visceral, and like I just felt so with the team. It was a surreal experience reading that opening, and I gotta like never get chills on that degree reading something. So I love Andrews and Wilson's writing style and action in particular. The way they write action is my favorite.
yeah, I love the way that they write their scenes too, especially like I listen to a lot of audiobooks, so
Yeah,
I hear the audiobook version, and I mean Ray Porter, who also does the Jack Carr books, he's fantastic, and
right.
that adds a whole nother dimension to it as well. But yeah, so
Yeah, Ray Porter, definitely the best audio book narrator that I know of, and people will, like search out books just to see his narration. I know that, which is cool.
yeah.
He's got a very distinct voice. And you're right; it does add a different layer, a different component to it.
So, um, you mentioned Louis L'Amour, and is that like your main influence for writing in the? Well, I guess uh, you write a lot in the Western genre, um, which is awesome. What specifically about that genre, I guess, made you want to write?
Yeah. So the Western genre to me is just a fascinating. Um, I'm going to start with like the like actual old school Western, and I'll kind of answer your question on why I like to write modern Westerns.
Sure.
So bear with me if it's long winded, but the Western genre as it stands, like the 1880s edition, is an interesting time to me where it's like in between uncivilized and civilized world, and you kind of have
Yeah.
primal man meeting our contemporary man, and I just find that kind of like putting a stake in the ground moment in our history, where it's like, all right, we're starting to form towns and laws, and we're doing modern life now. That stake in the ground moment is very interesting to me, and that's why I love reading the genre and watching films in it. I don't think I have. I mean, at this point in my life, I'm not confident enough in my historical research to kind of do an actual period western. Um, so I've always been really drawn to writing modern westerns, where you kind of take those themes, those tropes, and what it explores in the western genre, and you move it to a world that we're more familiar with, and that I'm, as an author, more comfortable writing about. So yeah, I think it comes from my love of the western genre and what it has to offer as far as thematics and the psychology of man, right at that drive a stake in the ground moment of history.
Yeah. I I definitely I'm kind of in the same boat with you. I haven't written a strict Western, but there is a part in my latest book where I kind of where I one of my characters is kind of like a cowboy vigilante type who is fighting drug dealers in Mexico, which is still kind of the Wild West, some would say. So, I can certainly appreciate the whole love of the Wild West, especially since like I live in Florida now, but I'm originally from Colorado, and uh, my my ancestors basically helped to settle Colorado back when it was a territory. So like I have that you know heretical fascination with the Wild West as well. So,
Right.
um, so yeah, I can certainly understand your love.
Can't
But
grow up
what?
in Colorado without it. That place is
Yeah. Well, I mean, sadly now that Colorado is more known for pot legalization and whatnot. But I mean, most natives that they
a
still
little bit
know
different.
the roots of the
Yeah.
West. So, but yeah, I mean, I think your genre with the Western, kind of blending the Western and the modern military thriller is pretty fascinating. So, what was your let me see how to ask this. Um, what was your process, I guess, for writing this specific
For writing Vipers,
yeah.
that was the question, like the process writing. Okay.
Yeah,
So I'm trying to think. Like my like process questions are increasingly difficult for me to answer because since I had kids, and Vipers is the first book I've written since having kids, things are so kind of schizophrenic, for lack of a better term, here and there, and moments stolen throughout the day, where I don't have as much of a writer routine as I used to. And so I think the process for Vipers was a lot of driving in the car, pre planning, plotting in my head so that when I had those moments to sit down, I could kind of like concretely know what I was going to do and get that written.
sure.
And so I think it took a lot more pre planning. Um, I don't outline or anything like that. Like I don't ever
No,
actually do an outline, but I will like make a video note or like an audio note to myself about like plot points, and I'll do that a lot during Viper.
is are you is Vipers a standalone book, or are you planning on making this a series? Because like I've noticed that like um when I write when I write my books, like the Shadows of Deception saga, which is kind of my series of novellas, like I developed a plot for like the overall, for the overall story arc like years ago, and then for each individual, book, I kind of have like a sub, outline. But then like you, I just kind of write whenever I can, and then improve the drafts later on.
Yeah, so Vipers can stand on its own, and you don't have to have read the other two. But I wrote Frozen Wrath and Retaliation Mountain before, and they are supplementary reading material for Vipers, where you see the world and kind of the context of what led up to Hunter Moss in Viper and down to Mexico. Um, but there is a hard break between the first two and this one, so you don't have to have read the other two. But yeah, this is technically the third in that series, which started about a motorcycle gang in Montana and one of the former vice presidents of that motorcycle club looking for a missing kid in their town. And that kind of inadvertently started this war with the biker gang and the police. And the sequel, Retaliation Mountain, shows what happened in that war between everybody and follows a deputy character. And Hunter Moss is another cop on that same force, and it leads right into Vipers. So you can read the other two to get more of a fuller picture, but it stands on its own as its own.
So so you also kind of dabble in crime fiction as well a bit. Uh, is kind of what I'm hearing. So
Yeah, I'd say so.
that's
I
just
Go ahead.
gonna
I
say
don't mean to cut you
that
off.
I was just gonna say that's interesting. So
Yeah, um, the crime fiction, I guess, is what really started Frozen Wrath and Retaliation Mountain. To me, those are westerns. Like to me, they're modern westerns. But
yeah,
I think it's easy to read those two and not get that from it. Um, but Vipers is very clearly like a tribute to the western genre. So I've always kind of had that men's adventure fiction in my own head and heart when I was writing those, but they do kind of lean more towards crime stories about a motorcycle club and missing kids.
yeah. I I noticed that you were posting some promotional stuff for that for that movie that just came out about the bikers, and the name escapes me right now, but it seems like you have a lot of influence from kind of that outlaw genre too.
Yeah, that's the bike riders, and I've
Yeah,
been
yeah.
I've been researching outlaw motorcycle clubs since 2020. Like I have the three books near me, all about biker clubs, because I'm writing the prequel to Vipers and Frozen Wrath and Retaliation Mountain right now to show the biker clubs origins with the character from the first one. It's just a fascinating thing to me, outlaw biker gangs, because again, with my love of westerns, they're kind of the equivalent to the modern day outlaw. And instead of riding horses, they're riding um, steel horses with
Right.
their motorcycles. It's just a nice kind of analogy for my writing and a personal fascination that I've turned into these novels.
So, yeah, and then I mean, as far as the whole, I guess men's adventure fiction. I mean, that's everyone kind of thinks that I'm maybe not crazy, but they're a bit surprised I've kind of dived into this, genre that supposedly is dead. But like, I don't know about you. I love men's adventure fiction partially because I just love pulpy action stuff from like the 60s through the 80s, but I also love the fact that like a lot of these pulp novels, they're shorter novels, but they have just as much depth in some of them. And I don't know about you, but I mean I assume now, especially since you have kids, like your time is limited. And so I don't have kids, I'm not married yet, but like it's a little hard for me to sit down and like read like a 600 page like Game of Thrones novel, whereas like
Yeah,
I would rather knock out like like 150 to 200 page adventure novel. And so writing in that genre, for me at least, has been great because it's an exercise in like telling a story but yet still being concise, I guess.
yeah, yeah. That's like you said. It's kind of considered dead when you look at the thriller section of any Barnes Noble or like any big box bookstore. Thrillers are beefcakes, like they're 300 plus pages, and that's kind of what's industry standard. But it's just interesting to me because back in the day, these pulp books they ruled the market, and Louis L'Amour was like, you know, selling kind of the equivalent to what a Jack Carr would sell. And I think that I don't know why it was lost, but I think there's still a hunger from guys like me and you and other people I've connected with for these short pulp adventures, because it's a different just rhythm and type of story than your big beefcake novels. And if you can tell a story in that concise manner, and you can give someone a punchy kind of pulpy story that sticks with them and is entertaining, it's just it's a different flavor that I think is missing. I think we're hopefully bringing it back, and that people we can revive it a little bit because I don't know why it's missing, but it needs to come back for many reasons. One, reading is going down the drain. People aren't reading as much, and I think
Yeah.
it can kind of bridge the gap and get people back into books. And two, like straight up the classic masculinity you were talking about from the 60s to the 80s, it thrives in that genre. And to see like just strong characters being strong characters, and just cutting through all the fluff, it's just a nice thing that is missing from modern age that I want more of.
Yeah, and that's something that like that's another reason why I write too, because like I don't know what your politics are, and it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter to me, but I hate how like everything in Hollywood now has to like be overtly political somehow, or like has to follow like a
Yeah,
certain narrative. And like I don't necessarily buy this whole notion of toxic masculinity, and that was one of the reasons why I started writing over more seriously again after I got out of college, was because I was seeing like all this. I was seeing all these like really, you know, all this like really bad like, you know, stuff coming out of Hollywood, but I didn't see a whole lot of stuff coming out to counteract it. It was just a lot of people hand wringing about, you know, how woke stuff is and whatnot, but not a lot of people were actually, you know, doing anything at it. So I'm like, you know, well, I'm only one guy, and granted, I don't have any, you know, name recognition other than the podcast, but I mean, I know how to write a story, so fuck it. If no one else is going to, I might as well. And you know, to my surprise, I think my series has so far gotten some pretty good feedback, and I'm very you know, pleased to see that it seems like people are liking Vipers and Red Rocks so far as well. So
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, it is. I think kind of a pendulum swing happening that we're luckily, hopefully, um, adding to is that I think people are starving for these action movies again and action stories that are what they closer to what they used to be, without the agendas and without like every time you sit at the theater feeling like you're getting a lecture. I don't want that either side, right? I don't want to hear from the left or the right. I just want to see an
right,
awesome action film or like or read a book that is getting my adrenaline pumping. I want to leave everything else behind, and so I'm with you. Like this genre, it just needs a comeback, and it has value to add, I think. And as far as you can show what strong men look like in a non-toxic fashion, right? You can
right.
see what that looks like. You can show the philosophies of being a strong individual, um, and I think that for young boys, that's something that's important, right? We I don't know about you, but I got a lot of life lessons from books and movies. Like a lot of my personality came from Rocky and the lessons that he was talking about in those
Yeah,
films. And given the youth something to look up to, that's why I write the Noah Redford series. Frozen Wrath and stuff, a little hard edged, and Vipers kind of tones it down a little bit to be more for a young boy to pick up. Um, but Noah Redford kind of bridges that even more. It's almost young adult, where I want to to write some men's adventure fiction that 12-year-old, 13-year-old can pick up and kind of learn the importance of being strong and virtuous and even violent when it's necessary.
yeah, yeah. Talk a little about the Redford series because I haven't read too much of that, but from what I understand, you're mainly doing that as like a blog series on your website.
It's just self torture. It's every 2 weeks, like every other Thursday, I write one of these, and with my busy schedule, I have no time for it. So I end up writing these like Wednesday nights or Thursday mornings before they're released. But I wanted to do like a kind of how the pulps used to be, like these serialized stories that would come out every other
Yeah.
week. So I've been writing a chapter every other week in real time and putting it up on my website, narrative-compass.com. And it's been fun, but like very stressful, and I should not have planned it out like that. I probably should have written it and then proactively, like retroactively released it.
No, no. I mean, I think it's good, and I think you know that's kind of how I write some of my stuff too. At times, I just I find it you know interesting that you're writing it you know on a blog because usually like for writing fiction, you don't get like at least in my experience, you don't get like that good of feedback in that way. But like, how has it been for you? Because I think like it's a fascinating, you know, concept. So, you know, like how has that been like publishing on the web so far?
Yeah, it's definitely been a super experimental thing, and I don't even know if it's successful or not. But I'm enjoying it, enjoying the challenge of it. It's helping me write a lot more and get more practice in. And also, I think what it's doing is really helping me build friendships and community with other people who really appreciate pulp and men's adventure fiction. Because I'll post, the pictures that I compile of old pulp magazine photos
Yeah,
for the covers each week, and I'll get people in the DMs talking about like, oh, they recognize that picture from this pulp, or whatever the thing is that connects with them. I think that's actually how me and Nathaniel ended up connecting, was just one of the posts about Redford, and him telling me he has an adventure web series, um, which you guys should check out, Nathan Colt. Um, but like, it's that kind of thing for me. It's been successful in the fact that I'm building this friendship network of other people who love men's adventure fiction, and so uh, at its at its worst, it's a lot of stress for me, and figuring out, scrambling how I'm going to kind of get the character out of a cliffhanger every week.
Yeah.
And at best, it's building me all these friendships.
No, it definitely it seems to keep you on your toes, and I mean, as a reader, it's been fascinating to kind of follow that a bit. It's interesting because I think I found you because I post a lot of like AI art that I kind of mold in the pulp genre, and I mean I that's basically what my entire Instagram is now. It's kind of wild, but yeah, like I who knew that like there was still I guess a falling for pulp art, which I think is kind of it's a great art medium, but unfortunately it's kind of not really died. I think it is kind of resurging, but it was kind of dormant for a while. So
Yeah, it's another one of those pendulum swings. It's been missing, and I think people are itching for it. When they see it, they're like, I like that. I want more of that.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I think men's adventure fiction is gonna. I think it's gonna have its day. I think things like the Bike Riders did really well at the box office the last couple of weekends, because it's just like you said, no political message, just kind of a masculine film and nothing else, and it did really well. And I think that's just one small example. We see Top Gun did really well. Like, these big action
yeah,
films, or these more masculine character driven things are doing well, because I think people have a hunger for them.
yeah. I mean, and I think you know I I think it was either you or Nathaniel mentioned Yellowstone, which was doing well
Yeah.
for a while, and then I think because of the writer strike, that kind of they had issues there, and I don't really know what's going on with that whole thing, but I mean Yellowstone, as ridiculous as it could be at times, I think was also kind of a turning point as far as that goes too. So, um,
Yeah, huge numbers for that show. Like
yeah,
12 million views or something like that. Absurd.
yeah. So yeah, and then you and Nathaniel, you guys made like a trailer for your book, which I found
Yeah.
that was wild to see. So like, what inspired you to be like, hey, we're let's do this, because you don't see that every day from like
So
independent authors.
yeah, um, yeah, that was a super cool and fun thing that I'm really happy and grateful to Nathaniel for, because he he shoots some of these things. Like, he's an actor and does a men's adventure fiction series on his YouTube, and so he like has shot a few different promos and different things like that in the vertical kind of like Instagram reel style before.
Huh.
Sent one to me, and was like, "You should make one of these for Vipers and Red Rocks," and I was like, you should make one of these for Vipers and Red Rocks, because you look like the character, and you're actually like, you fit the bill. Like, you can do this. So he agreed to do it, and I was super grateful. He went out and shot that, and edited it, did it all himself, and I just told him, like, full creative freedom. I trust you. Make it however you want. And he came back with that, and it was fantastic. So that's just kind of a testament to Nathaniel's grasp on men's adventure fiction, and men's adventure fiction kind of like filmmaking side of it and acting. He nailed it. And now in my head, he really is Hunter Moss, which is cool.
That's always cool when you can kind of when you cast someone and then can actually meet them. It's kind of wild, because I don't know if you've had a chance to read any of my stuff yet. I'd be happy to send you an audiobook, but you actually remind me a bit of my character John Ryder, how I've physically described him. So that's kind of wild.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Now, I mean, as far as your
Yeah, we need to
personal
make more of
background,
these live action shows.
yeah, yeah. So now, as far as your personal background, like you mentioned that you're into fishing and you're a boxer and all that. So I mean, you live a pretty full life too. It seems like outside of just being an author. So you know, I, I guess what if you don't mind me asking, like, what is your life story? I guess.
Yeah, so I was born with less than 1% chance of surviving. I've got this congenital heart defect, which essentially four chamber heart. Mine was two chamber heart, and they had to do some finagling to get it to work. And I don't have
Ooh.
a pump heart like everybody else. It's passive flow, so the blood just kind of goes through if it's hydrated enough. Or got to take blood thinners for that. And so for the most part, it didn't affect me or my psychology or anything like that for a very long time. But 2020, technically 2019, I got these clots in my heart, lung, and legs, and it was the first time where like the effects of my heart condition showed up. And now it's kind of everything's deteriorating, and I'm told every kind of time I go to the doctors like you're gonna have to get a heart transplant and a liver transplant, and like everything's kind of dying inside. So I live in a way that is like with the understanding that I might die whenever, and I have this really intimate like relationship with death, and so I think that has helped my writing. If you read Frozen Wrath, it was kind of me right on the heels of this stuff, exploring these existential questions of death and legacy and losing your life, and so because of that, I try to do more. I try to live, more and do what I want to, like writing novels. I don't want to wait. I just have this, I guess, eagerness to live and wake up and do things because
Yeah.
of how little time I might have, and I don't want to waste it.
Well, well, you definitely seem. I mean, you definitely seem healthy to me. I mean, just looking at you. But I mean, yeah, I can certainly understand where you're coming from. I have cerebral palsy and I'm in a wheelchair. It's not quite the same thing, but
Yeah,
I've been I encountered a brush with death, like very early on in my life, and so I kind of have the same
right.
approach of you only live once, and that kind of seems, I guess, cliched now because of how it's used on social media. But I mean, I think, yeah, you've only got one life to live in, so yeah, like we're both only in our 20s, but I mean, why not try and be the next great novelist, while you still can
Yeah, yes,
be.
you definitely get it, and I think that's what I tell people is even if you don't have any medical condition, you have no idea when you're gonna step into traffic and get hit by a car. Like you don't know when you're gonna
Yeah,
die, so you have to do those things you want to do. I say don't let things get trapped in your grave. That's kind of the way I've said that, but I mean for people to not let their ideas, their novels, their businesses end up, dying with them. If you want to do something like that, if it's been gnawing at you, you got to just try. You know, that's what I'm big on.
yeah, yeah. I mean, same here. I also think though it's persistence too. Like I've been podcasting since I was 14, so like around 2008, and it's like the podcast is pretty successful now, but like early on, no one was really like listening to it, and I think now, like even the generation is kind of coming up. Like I always try to tell them that persistence is important, and to just keep at what you're doing because like yeah, I might have some notoriety now, but like I'm still not as big as I could be, and I think you know a lot of young men and a lot of kids coming up now, they think they're going to be the next Joe Rogan or they think they're going to be the next, you know, whatever. And it's like, well, I mean, you could potentially be like that, but you've got to work and you've got to grind um, at whatever you're doing, and it might take years and years before you can really even begin to see, the fruits the fruits of your labor. Like like you, I was writing stories for years and years and years before I even published my first
Yeah,
one. And I still feel like I'm just getting started, even though I'm on, novella number 3. So
yeah, definitely a very important lesson is the difference between process goals and progress goals. Like if all you're interested in is getting it, being the next Jack Carr, getting a bestseller, and that's your focus. I want to do this. I want to be a bestseller, and that's what you're worried about. That's the wrong way to go about it. I'm with you because it's all
right,
about the process of falling in love with writing and doing it every single day and working on it and working on it, not because you want to be the next Jack Carr, even though that's a nice benefit, right? Maybe if you do, fantastic. But you have to do it because it's something internal that you want to, and it adds that internal validation, that internal um, drive, rather than some thing you're chasing like bestseller status. It's got to be the internal, and it's got to be processed, like you're saying. But
yeah. I mean, I love Jack Carr. I think he was one of the big reasons why, like, the Terminalist, the first book, came out while I was in college, and it was kind of one of those books. Like, as soon as I graduate, like, I've got to get back to like writing because this is fantastic. And fortunately, I've had the chance, like, even though he and I don't follow each other, like, I have mentioned him in a few of my posts, how much of an influence he was. And he's very gracious. And, I've actually been able to meet a few people who know him somewhat well. But yeah, I mean, his story is kind of, and I've been told this too, like, the chances that you're going to be like Jack Carr are 1 in a million. He really got a sweet deal just because of the circumstances that he was in. But if someone can do like an eighth of what he does, then that's better than most. So
yeah, just get
so
out there
that's
and
kind of
try,
my
and don't try to be anybody else, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So and then I saw that you just went into Thriller Fest, which I've heard of Thriller Fest, but I've never been there. So how is that experience for you?
When I cut out there, you heard I went to Thriller Fest. That was the last. That was the last that I heard.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I heard you went to Thriller Fest, and I've never been, but I'm just curious from your perspective, like how was that?
It's cool. I've been. That was my first Thriller Fest, and kind of my second convention overall. I went to VoucherCon last year, and so it's still kind of all new to me, and to a lesser extent than VoucherCon, um, with Thriller Fest, because it was my second time. It was just a lot of like, whoa, that's that guy. Whoa, that's that guy. It's just like seeing people
Right,
and
right.
being like, wow, that's Tom Bentley. Like, that kind of stuff was, I think, as a fan first, that was what I was really excited about. Um, but I think those are such good experiences to have if you can pull them off. Luckily, I have like family and my parents meet me out there, so I can help me with like the hotel costs and stuff because I'm not rich by any means. New York is like
No,
very
no.
expensive, so I was very grateful to be able to go to that. But like, if you can pull it off, it's great for the networking. It's unbelievable how nice and generous with time and support the thriller community is. And
Yeah,
in person, being able to shake hands and meet people, that's the biggest benefit to Thriller Fest and VoucherCon. So if anyone's able to pull that off, because it is pricey, especially Thriller Fest is more pricey than VoucherCon. And if you can pull it off, it's really great networking.
yeah. I am looking at maybe going in the future. I wasn't really tracking when it was this year, but I'm definitely going to next year so I can plan ahead a bit more. And yeah, you're right. I mean, I think the thing that always fascinates me is that like the thriller genre community is incredibly nice, which given the genre that we write in and given how dark, some of the content is that we write out
Yeah,
sometimes, you might not you might not think that that's the case, but like I'm friends with other authors like Steve Stratton and Eric Bishop, who's a really good friend of mine, and he really kicks ass in the thriller world, and two of the nicest guys I've met. So in this game, and then you're always supportive of everyone. Just this community is amazing. Much better than the initial like political arena I was in, so to speak. So,
Yeah,
but
definitely a different world. It's like we're eager to help as thriller writers. I know I am, at least. Like as a writer, when I see someone else like have a creative passion, I want to stoke it and like get that fire going.
yeah,
And so I will always like, if you have interest in writing, message me. I want to talk to you about it and get you encouraged and give you some rocky speeches to get you writing. That's like my favorite thing.
yeah. Well, and then like one of my cousins is like an independent filmmaker, and he's in
Yeah,
his late 40s, or he's in his late 30s, early 40s now, but he's been in Hollywood for the past, I think, 20 years or so. He's done decent for himself, but he just texted me and it was like, man, I have all these screenplays that haven't gotten accepted, and I'm like, dude, you should like consider turning those into like novels or short stories, or something. Like, you have good material. Maybe it's just the wrong you know format. So yeah.
yeah. The world of thriller writing is easier to produce money wise than it is to like get a film off the ground for sure. So I'm with you. Like I've again, I wrote screenplays and that's how I started. But of course, I wasn't gonna like make Frozen Wrath my first novel into a film. That would be a totally different venture. Um, and
Right.
so, you know, flipping it to writing, it's way more plausible. And that doesn't mean you might not get optioned or have a better chance of making it as a film in the future if that's still your passion. But yeah, I think we always need to look at what's the best option available to us and move forward with that. It might not be best case scenario, which you always want, but what is the best case that you can do right now, and always move forward with the next best thing. That's important.
Well, like, people have said to me, and I appreciate the compliment, but like the number one thing that a lot of my friends have said is, "Wow, this needs to be turned into a movie or something." And I'm always like, "Well, I really appreciate that feedback, but I'm not really focused on that until like someone hands me a check, even if it's an indie, you know, studio, because until that happens, like." It's, I mean, I guess as far as like visualizing stuff in your head while you're writing, it's good. But like, I think people who write solely to try and get their stuff adapted, the writing isn't always as good, and it kind of shows from, from what I've
Yeah,
from what I've noticed. They're not really in it for the passion of the story. They just want to see, uh, you know, take your pick of an actor on screen playing their character. So,
yeah. It goes back to the writing for the wrong reasons type of thing. You got to make sure you're doing it for because you actually want to, and like it's all internal rather than again for that external. Like, oh, I want someone to make a movie out of this. Writing for the wrong reasons will get you, you know, not where not where it's best.
yeah. So, as far as like, so I know you just finished Vipers and Red Rocks, and I'm sure that you probably want like a little bit of a break since you've just, published your book, which again, congratulations. But
Thank you.
where where are you headed from here as far as your writing writing journey? What's in store for you next, do you think?
So I'm about at Thriller Fest, like leaving Thriller Fest that weekend. I started um, my current work in progress, um, and I'm about 12,000 words into it now. It's a story taking place in the 1990s about this motorcycle club forming, and it's like the prequel to Frozen Wrath, Retaliation Mountain, and Vipers, with my favorite character I've ever written, Dante Gibbs, and kind of showing him he was a Army Ranger who worked with these mobile units who rode dual sports during the Gulf War. And he comes back from the military, and his brother has started this outlaw motorcycle club in their town, and it's about his story of kind of how that got involved and what were the first couple of years like with that club. And it's a story I've had an idea for since Frozen Wrath, and so I've just been so excited to be writing it. So I'm actually, thrilled to talk about it, and I'm always excited to share about it. I've posted a few things on Instagram. I already pulled out these
Yeah,
today
yeah.
to show you. These are the research books I'm using for that, and so I'm just excited about this next chapter, which is going and looking back at the beginning.
Well, that's great. It sounds like you're in the similar. It sounds like you're in the same boat I am, where you're kind of building an expanded universe, you know, to your world, so to speak. Which, you know, I don't know about you, but like I find fleshing out a universe to be the one of the most like exciting and fun things um,
Yeah,
in writing. So
yeah, it's like almost a different kind of evolution in writers' minds. I think is this expanded universe, and I don't know if it comes from Marvel or what, but like I feel like we're all in tune with this, and it's so good because now we have like Jack Hart. Even I think is going to probably show his dad, like the James Reese's dad's character and things like that. Like we're seeing more of this. Bull Mountain, if you ever read that with Brian
yeah,
Sandwich, that blossomed out. But like as I'm writing, I'm with you. I can't help but look back and look forward. So in my head canon, I know this world up until like 2045, like that year, and what characters would be like when they're older. Like I know all of that, and I'm building all that, and I think that's fun. And it's something that I'm seeing more of, and I'm excited to see more of is expanded universes and looking
yeah.
broader, like back and forward.
Yeah, well, I have characters who like so my main character John Ryder, his dad is like a his dad is dead in the current timeline, which is kind of weird. But I'm going back and writing a prequel series on the father and his experiences and the father's experiences
Awesome.
in the Vietnam War,
I
and
love
then
that.
like working in the CIA during the 1980s. And what's interesting about that is like I've actually had a few people who have reached out to me and like, well, hey, I was in the Secret Service, during the Reagan administration. If you need anything, I'd love to help. So, like, just talking to
Awesome.
former military and Secret Service guys who were around during that time is always interesting. So, and then I think like you know shows like The Americans, which have kind of dug into that time period as well, are always
Yeah,
fascinating.
that's
So
exciting. The authenticity of life
so yeah.
is amazing.
Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time here. I really appreciate you coming on, and like I said, congratulations. Where can people find you and find the book and all that jazz?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate you having me on to talk about this kind of stuff. I love chatting about men's adventure fiction and all that. So yeah, you can find Vipers and Red Rocks on Amazon right now. I'm on Instagram most actively at ls_author. You can find me there, and then yeah, I have a YouTube, but you can find that through the Instagram. My website's narrative-compass.com if you want to read Noah Redford. Comes out every other Thursday. But yeah, mostly Instagram. So
What
thank you so much.
what do you cover on your YouTube channel? Uh,
So it's a number of things. I'm by training and trade. I'm a counselor. Uh, so I talk about different mental health topics. Sometimes I talk about writing in mental health. I talk about just books that I've been reading, kind of like recommendations. So it's an eclectic thing. that I just use to kind of chat longer form stuff I don't want to put on Instagram that might be too long for it. So
Yeah. Have you ever considered like, and again, I guess this is kind of where it goes into sales pitch mode, but have you ever considered maybe starting a podcast at some point or something like
yeah, so
that?
there is stuff that will be teased very soon about that. Something with me and Nathaniel getting together to do something. So we kind of teased it during the live, and more to come on that soon. So yeah, um,
All right.
maybe going to be
Yeah,
doing
well,
a little bit more of a.
I'd love to have both of you gentlemen on, and I mean, like I said, I'm a I've been doing this podcasting for 16 years, so I'm at the point now where I'm still growing, but I
You've
also
got some
want to pay
knowledge.
it forward. So anything I can do to help you gentlemen, uh, just let me know and reach out. So also, if you're not on Twitter or X, you might want to consider uh, getting on there because I know it can be a dumpster fire at times, but it also is really helpful for authors.
Yeah,
But
I have not gotten on there yet, so I'll have to look into that for sure.
but yeah. Well, anyway, Luke, it's been an honor to finally meet you and chat with you. Sort of face to face, and congrats on the book. And I'd love to have you back on. So soon.
Thanks so much. It's been an
So
absolute pleasure. I appreciate you.
so. All right, folks, and thank you guys for tuning in. And I will see you on the Wednesday show. Until then, God bless, God save this great nation, and God freedom legacy in that order. I'll see you on the next episode, folks. Take care.